So I'd like to open up. What we'll do is we'll take a few questions, and if you can address your question and also tell us which speaker you like to respond, but after we take a few of them, then we'll start responding. Okay? So over to you. 1, 2, 3. Yep. Alam, you had a...
No, this young here for the school here. She got a very good summary of it.
Okay, great. Okay, right. Would you like to start? Yeah? And then we'll go around. I have the hands up. Yeah, please start.
No, I just wanted to add on to what Ibtehal kindly said about the revolution. I just wanted to comment on the fundamental and revolutionary role which women have had in this. I think it's quite honourable and inspiring to see news outlets all over the world recognise what women have been doing, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time women have been at the forefront of such a pivotal campaign for the uprising and development of a country. The youth have additionally played a fascinating role. It's so, yeah, it just inspires me constantly to see people that are younger or even older than me just sacrificing their lives for our beloved country, Sudan. And I just wanted to thank Ibtehal for her wonderful presentation and everyone here for listening and giving us the space and the platform to discuss such an important problem in our society.
Yep, let's give a round of applause. Can I make a small request? Can you? I might have missed. Can you tell us your name and your background a little bit, just from where you come from?
So my name's Hadil Abdulati. I'm 15. I'm also from Sudan. I'm currently a student at Arc Academy, and I'm in year 10.
Very, very proud to hear you. Okay, thank you very much. We had a few hands up there. If you like, yeah, please, at the back.
All right. Can you hear me? Yeah? All right. Thank you very much for all your presentations. I have 2 questions. The first one can be...
Can you kindly introduce yourself, your name and your organization or university?
My name is Yara Sati. I just finished my undergraduate degree of international relations, hoping to do a master's in global development or international development. My first question can be addressed to all of you. My second is for Lama. So my first question is, how can these international organizations, such as the UN, enact the human rights of citizens facing grave violations like the ones in Sudan? And how can the ICC hold war criminals to account despite other personal and structural barriers or influences? My question for Lama is, what is the most significant barrier that affects women's progression that you have found so far? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Madison. I'm a second year going into third year international development student with NGO management at the University of East London. I wanted to just say thank you all so much for your amazing presentations. This was a highly anticipated session for me and it did not disappoint. I was highly engaged with every single one of your presentations and I think it's absolutely amazing to hear about Sudan and Saudi Arabia and the empowerment of women and youth. And I had a couple of questions. My first one was aimed at Lama. Is that how you say it? Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, sorry. Yeah, I wanted to ask how exactly you could see the gender barriers in Saudi Arabia improving to allow for maybe say like technological centers for disadvantaged women to be able to go and learn different technological skills to be able to give them the ability to maybe open their own businesses or be able to lift themselves out of this repetitive cycle of poverty and disadvantagement, and what you think that could be done to help reach those goals, to help bring women out of the positions that they're in these countries. And my other comment actually was just on your presentation. Next to you, I'm sorry, how do you say your name?
Don't worry, it's Ibtehal.
Ibtehal. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's amazing to hear about Sudan because I know that media coverage had been lacking quite heavily in the previous months, and that it's so inspiring to hear about the women and the youth and everything that they're doing in Sudan and being able to educate us on, everything that's going on. So I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation. That's all.
Okay, my name is Hisham Yusuf Hassan. My background is I'm a food safety and international food law consultant based in Canada, and I'm originally from Sudan. My add-on is going to be more of a comment, more than a question. The first one is to Olivia. Very good speech, by the way. I have a comment. I was expecting you to elaborate more or to mention the role of oppressive ruling regimes in the slow growth in digital technology in Africa. As example, for example, in Sudan now, there are some certain websites, academic websites, that are blocked from viewers in Sudan, like very simple website like Coursera, for example. You cannot log in to such websites to seek knowledge and education. So maybe you need to elaborate more on that. That's the first question or first comment. And also on recommendations. I think, as an addition to that, we should encourage governments to work together to have better services, especially like internet services. We see a very bright example in Rwanda right now. They sent a satellite, and they have internet free for all citizens. So why can't we encourage African unions to work together to have such an achievement? My comment to Dr. Brown, very interesting. I was actually laughing at some parts of your speech, especially about the marriage and productivity. And I think males and females complete each other. For example, one of the greatest inspiration for me was my wife. She would discuss with me everything. If I tell her I'm gonna bring a star down to Earth, she will say, you know what, I think you could do it. So she might not discuss with me very deep scientific details, but she would encourage me. My kids also, always been a big role in that. And to Lama, also, I think I lived in Saudi Arabia for a long time. My comment is, I think there is a misconception between religion, the role of religion and traditions. And I think as a Saudi academia like yourself, we need to enlighten people about that, because most of the time they think of tradition as something religious. So this is a big factor we have to focus on. And finally, to Ibtehal, could you elaborate more on the historical role of women in empowering men throughout the history of Sudan? It's like a history of over 4,000 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We just have one more question this round, because I have a lot of hands up. If you could take your question, then we'll go to the speakers.
Excellent presentations. My question really is to Olivia. And really, could you elaborate a bit more on the role of the African diaspora here in the UK? And what kind of links? I didn't get a sense of how being the host country and the historical links and some of those, there's lots of many channels for some of the areas that you spoke about.
Thank you very much. We'll come to the other questions in the next round, so please bear with me because I can see that there's a lot more, as much I should say, experience and excitement on the other side of the table. So we'll come. Olivia, perhaps we'll share with you and then we'll go one speaker after another. I know there were a variety of questions that are asked of you. If you could just think of a way of answering them as much as you can.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I would start by answering the gentleman. Sorry, I don't want to call you gentleman in red. Yeah. With respect to the issue of data, is that what you asked? Yeah, being engaging and being able to assess courses like Coursera. If you remember one of the things I said. Okay, sorry. Apologies. If you remember one of the things I said, that there's a great problem in Africa concerning electricity. Sometimes you call in Africa, they're telling you, oh, it's eating my data, I'm going to call you back, or I don't even have money to the data. And downloading courses, actually takes a whole lot of money. If we said that 60% of people are unemployed, they are poor, how can they effectively, assess the courses that are actually right for them? That's one question. Then the second thing is that, remember, I said that there are actually government offices that don't even have the internet. The challenge we have is that how many government institutions are ready, to put money, when they make their budgets. Sometimes they don't even put much into technology. They don't put money into technology. And if they don't put money into technology advancement in that respect, how could we have all these courses that we're talking about? How could we have a whole load of broadband? There are schools in rural areas in Kenya, in Sudan, in some places in Zaire, in Nigeria as well, that don't even have access to the internet. Is that bad? They have to travel from one of the rural areas to the urban areas. So those are the challenges. And if you say that, what are the government doing about it? And that is why we are all here, is to make recommendations to them, to the right department, for them to see so. Having said so, there are private organizations, who are pushing, the fiber network, in the areas of broadband, but are spreading. They are in this much more concentrated in the cities. And as private individuals and organizations, without the, let me put it, without the public sector, adding, to it, it should be very difficult for that to, to spread. I hope that's answered some of the questions. You don't sound convinced. 50-50.
No, because I talked about repressive regimes. That's what I focused on.
Sorry, let me hear you. Okay. Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, because I want you to focus on some oppressive regimes that are like banning some websites from the public, not due to economical factor, but due to their nature of oppressing nations.
Remember that not only in Africa, it's happened also, recently in India, where oppressive governments ban access, they shut down, because they are, the powers that be, which is oppressive, shut down, access, from people, for 24 hours. Sometimes it goes for 3 to 5 days. Of course, and that's where activism, comes in. If that makes sense. Activism comes in to challenge that.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. Yep.
Yeah. Got hearing problem.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I have hearing problem. I will hear. Yeah.
Is it okay? Yeah.
Right. Okay. Can I just answer the question? Yeah.
When
Okay.
you want to talk, just take it out.
Yeah.
Take it out.
Okay. And then use this one.
Unplug it. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Go now. Talk.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Can I answer the question, what the African diaspora, the links that they do have, with the African countries? Of course, they have, I belong to, 2 different ones. They do have links with African countries because there are a whole load of different African organizations in the UK, but it's some of them are not formalized. I'll take an example of Nigeria, for example. We've got an organization called NADO. We've got the one called KANOK, which the government actually recognizes, and through that means they're able to make connections. For example, when their politicians come over here, they do, sometimes they don't even come here to campaign, inspire, people to even return back home, discuss, the development that is going on. But in the area of technology, that's still very slow. There's not much development in the area, of technology. But if it's dialogue, the dialogue has started, but it's not yet formalized. When I mean formalized, it's not the kind that you could say, well, it's really recognized. For example, in Nigeria, those in the UK, we don't have diaspora votes, which makes it very difficult. Even though we are challenging regimes, we are challenging the status quo, but because our voice is limited and we don't have a vote, it makes a whole lot of things very difficult. I hope that answers a bit of your question. 50-50. We'll talk after. Yeah? We'll talk after as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Brown.
Okay, so I'm going to answer the question about doing it together. So I'm going to interpret the question in this sense, that actually women can't do. If women were able to fix the problem of the glass ceiling, we would have done it by now. It's just that we didn't cause it, and that we can't do it without the men helping us to let it go away as well. And I think in particular, so in the Saudi Arabia case, I think one to watch, I would say, is that even when it appears that a little hatch has opened in that glass ceiling, just make sure that you're not put into another box as you climb through that little hatch. Because I suspect that there's a certain amount of tokenism that goes on. So, for example, there are rather few women academics who are at the rank of Pro-Vice-Chancellor, Vice President in this country. But when they get to that rank, they're far more likely to be a Pro-Vice-Chancellor for teaching and learning than they are to be a Pro-Vice-Chancellor for research. So I made a point of making sure that I didn't go down that route because I was determined not to be pigeonholed and pocketed. But this is what happens. I think people get pocketed. I think it happens with choice of university subjects. I think there are, you're far more likely to be channeled towards nursing or the caring professions if you're a woman, and you're far more likely to be channeled towards management and leadership and law if you're a man. And these kinds of things make a difference from right at the very beginning when you're setting out on your educational journey, but they carry on right to the top.
Yeah, I think one of the perennial debates happens to be, I work quite closely with grassroots women. Is it about women's empowerment? Is it about women's mobilization? Is it about just agency? Or is it about a gender equality approach, which necessarily involves male champions for women's empowerment? In some cases, as you said, Verity, it's just removing the obstacles, getting out of the way. At other times, it's pushing from the back. So I was just hoping that you would have also told your wife that she's capable of getting not just the stars, but the moon and all the planets down. So it's a mutual reinforcement. So when Verity talked about couples working together, I think the important message in that was, a two-way street. So I'm sorry, I just stole a few moments of yours. If I could pass on.
So I'll answer the question. So please, if I forget something, just remind me. First of all, about the most significant barriers. From the survey, we found the internal barriers, the personal barriers. The personal barriers were the most affected barriers. From the semi-structured interview, the qualitative, it was external barriers, it was the cultural barriers. They believe this is the most significant barriers. Another question was about the gender barriers. There is a huge steps now been taking Saudi Arabia in this regard. Some of people from outside point of view, they thought it's baby step. It's okay, unless we are moving, we are happy. There is a lot on our shoulder to do, and some of us has got tiny shoulders, but we try, and we keep trying. And always I love to say that we have to have a place on the table. If we didn't have that table, we have to create our own table. The business women, I think current days been so helpful with the social media and the early and the technology. There's been a lot of women, business women be around, having that platform of advertising and helping themselves on that. And there's quite a big number of big business women in Saudi Arabia. There's challenges, there's no doubt, but we're trying their best. I love the fact that they're helping each other, which is really nice, to pulling each other to climb the ladder together. So, other question was about, you point out, sir, about that we have to be very clear as academian about the religion issues and cultural issue. If someone, I always, when I speak about it, someone is interested in early Islamic era, I always love to point out that Prophet Muhammad's wife, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is a very successful woman, as being counselor to himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Shifa al-Adawiyya, she's prime minister. When you try to get the job specification at that time, she was like a minister of the economic. She's going around the souk, the small open market. She is examined the prices. She have got this all a very important job as a management. So there's clear no issue with the religion, with the women itself. So it's might there's no doubt there's a problem with the culture or concept or mindset toward women, or even accepting women in a leadership position. So it is quite challenging, but as you said, Prof, that we have to keep going, and we never lost hope, and climb as much as we could, so to crack this glass ceiling. We hope. We hope so. I'm not sure if there any question I didn't answer. The gender barriers, sorry, maybe the gender barriers, the driving ban to being removed last June. It's a huge step. We've been asking for ages for it, so we are happy. I was so glad when I returned back for the data collection, looking around, seeing other women driving, having their own life, working in some positions that I found it, oh my gosh, I said, okay, you come from London or other place, you know, being in a shift at night time in hotels. We didn't use to even accept this position. So I'm so glad, I'm so happy that this change has been on, and we're always looking forward for more changings. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to add that many people actually take for granted that women got the right to drive easily. And as was pointed out, this has been over 20 years. But also just pause for a moment and think, when the government showed its commitment to support women in the right to drive, it had to do dozens of things. It had to set up, for example, parking spaces. It had to encourage, for example, loans for women to buy cars, as well as set up criminal laws to prevent men from blocking women driving. The only one thing they couldn't fix is driving schools. It's still a big problem because there are very few women drivers who can train other women drivers. So women who want to drive have to go outside Saudi Arabia and get a license, driving license, and come.
Actually, sir, there is a driving school now. It's opening in Princess Noura University, where I work. I've got there. They give them the whole building with the big spacing and
so how many people can be trained quickly?
To be honest, there is a long queue, but officially the driving school is open, and we are so glad that Princess Noura University offered the place, as it's. We are so happy and proud with this university because it's just the only university, and this is something that women do it in Saudi Arabia and inspire other women around the world.
Another round of applause,
So yeah,
really, for
thank
that.
you so much. But I have to admit, it's a long queue because a lot of candidates, they need to.
That's good news too.
But yeah, thank you so much, but still good news.
Thank you. So, Ibtehal?
The question asked about the history of women empowering men. So my research mainly focused on the role of women and youth. And because they've been the focus, question that came up was what the role of men has been. And I mentioned like how early the women movements. Oh, you need to turn off this one. I'll start again. So no, it's okay. So the question about the history of women empowering men, I was saying that my research mainly focused on the role of women and youth, and they've been the focus of recent events, and it's raised the question of what the role of men has been. So that's something that we would be looking into rather than the opposite of that. But I spoke about how early the movements in Sudan began, and all of that operated within a patriarchal society. So I think it speaks to the support that the women experience from men, and also building on some of the points that my colleagues mentioned earlier, that it's sort of a symbiotic relationship where they support each other rather than one segment of the society upholding and pushing the other while they lay in the background.
Thank you very much. I think since we started the session, I have the permission of Alam that we go on a little bit longer. So we'll go for another round of questions. I had a few hands up. So there's one over there. And I think that I have a few over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
put something in.
Sure, of course.
No, not to interrupt the session, but just to bring to your attention, with the permission of the chair, we do have a very important initiative with the World Association for Sustainable Development. You can see it here, and it's called Youth Initiatives, and we've been partnering for, this is the third year now, with the United Nations Children and Youth Organization. You know, the United Nations, they got the youngest and children initiative, and you can see the partner, the Center for Islamic Finance, Ahliya University, St. George School, which is the Church of England school here, one of them, and lots of them. But just with the permission of the chair, this is one of the initiatives in Bahrain. It started in Bahrain. We're very successful in the Middle East, since you're talking about the Middle East.
Attended you earlier.
Yes. What was it about, and what was the outcome?
The idea of today was, the name of the event was Togetherness Day, and the idea or the basic aim for this event was to bring every or different kind of religions, different themes of nationality all together in one place under one roof, so that we all are safe together.
Are you in touch with any other students' union activities, whether in the UK, in Europe, in America, in Arab countries? Are you in any way in contact with any student unions across the world?
For now, it is like initiated within the university, but the voice is increasing, and we are getting, for example, today we got you guys to come and interview us, so we are getting similar proposals from other places around the world, and not only from Bahrain.
In the United Kingdom and most European countries. So I as I said, because I intervened this, but I would like to encourage you all under the Center of Islamic Finance. Imagine this, always I remind people with this title of this center, Center of Islamic Finance, Law and Communities. So we do lots of work on communities. But just to bring this to a conclusion, in 2010, when we went to St. Lucia, I don't know if you know St. Lucia is in the Caribbean, this Hurricane Thomas cut the city into two parts. And the children's symbol, their schools were collapsed. There's no school. So we said to the Prime Minister, and at that time, can you bring those kids who are currently have no school because of the Hurricane Thomas? And they brought all of them in the room, almost 100 something from the local school. And I sing if I find it. And even they sang for us. This is very famous in San Lucia. This is what is San Lucia. So we are heavily involved with the youth initiative. They had no school. It's being cut by the Hurricane Thomas at that time.
Everything I can, I will mitigate, I will educate. We pledge to reach every child and man. We will educate, we will advocate. Bring down the carbon emissions below 350 before our islands end up in the sea. Onward to Cancun, let this message unfold. We have to say to the world, it's changing the climate. With all the coals they're burning, look, the sea levels rising. It's changing the climate. With all the trees they're cutting, all the corals are bleeding, all the trash they're throwing.
Remember, this is 2010, 9 years ago.
When the downtown's were gone, we're going, 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 going.
You can see the kids now in the room. You can see, they came to the conference like this. These are all kids from the school. But just recently, last few months ago, in the climate change summit in Paris, the United Nations brought Dr. Gail Rigobert, who is the Minister for Sustainable Development of San Lucia, and she made a very powerful speech for the United Nations. And she said, if this climate change continue as it is, one of the islands, and the example she said, my country, San Lucia, will disappear from the whole planet. So San Lucia by 2050, if it continues like this,
one time with
it will disappear.
Aviation Office and ICAO.
So we have been raising this issue 9 years ago. So we are heavily involved in this. Sorry. So just encouraging you, come forward if you have any initiative to do with young and women. We have another issues with the women because it's a big project involving the United Nations itself. Many people, they don't know the United Nations, they have a youngest generations, one called youth and women. Oh, we have, do you want us to show you something? Yeah,
They would like to see us in action.
So you can see.
Yeah, we will not notice that we have visitors because we've actually invited them to notice how. A couple of things I wanted to add. You've seen how Alem, as all of you know, are very passionate about issues relating to youth and women. At University of East London, we have just taken over as the chair of the Stakeholders Forum and Group for UN Habitat, which deals with urban issues. And also we have a small Global Challenge Research Fund, where in the coming month, we'll be in touch with you. We'll be looking at how we can actually carry out training as well as dialogue and so on. Okay, so I had a few questions people ready to have. So I'm going to start with my friend right at the back and then move along as we had done. So please.
Hi, my name is Jamal. I am a well-being and emotional supporter, or you can say therapist, at Abbey Community Association. My question to Lama. Lama said you have vision for 2030 for women to enhance the academia for women's side. But what about the political movement or engagement for female at that time for the Saudi women? Is there any vision for that involvement, like the political involvement for women? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll take a few more questions before we come back to Lama. I'm going to come in the middle and then I'm going to come to you. Yes, please. Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Marifel. I'm from the University of East London. I study law with international relations. My question is for Ms. Olivia. You did mention that there is a high percentage of youths who are jobless, and a majority of that percentage are women and young girls. Majority of young girls in rural areas are already pregnant by the age of 15 or 16. This is because of lack of education. Those kids are raised in poor, unhygienic area, meaning the cycle will repeat. How do you think that technology can help lift up women out of this repeating cycle? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you. My name is Azza. I'm currently studying my master's in architecture at the University of Westminster, and my dissertation is the project. It talks about the women of Sudan. So, Ibtehal, I just want to say thank you for your presentation and raising awareness of what is happening in Sudan. Just to add on, women in Sudan have been oppressed by the TMC for 30 years. This is one of the reasons that have pushed them to go on the street and lead this revolution. They've been oppressed in home, they've been oppressed on the streets. So we should be really proud of them and we should support them. And as you mentioned about the youth, we have come together as much as we can, and we raised on social media platform about the Blue for Sudan. So it's a hashtag that is going viral now around the world. Celebrities are talking about it as well. And it's so my question to you is, what else can we do as a youth community to help the people of Sudan? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just take one or two questions, if there are any ones. Okay, there's one more over there and a final one. Okay, at the back. And sorry, yourself. Okay, so there are 1, 2, and 3. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Negla. I am a journalism with contemporary Arabic studies graduate. I now work in digital marketing with some freelance journalism work. My question actually does follow in from what Azza was saying, but on a lot more of a general scale. And if I could, I would actually like to open this question up to all the speakers, because it's a question that's come off the back of what's happened in Sudan. But sadly, what's happened in Sudan is not unique to just Sudan. It has happened in many countries. I think a lot of us straight away we can think of what's happened in the Arab Spring. What has happened in Sudan from the June 3rd massacre is step by step what has happened in Egypt with the Rabaa massacre. At the same way they use Mubarak's trial to distract the Sudanese people, they're using Bashir's trial to distract the Sudanese people from the revolution. So I guess my question is now, bearing in mind that obviously the ICC had already had an arrest warrant for Bashir, and that was never executed. And in my personal opinion, I think if that would, maybe things would not be at where they are today. Nonetheless, I want to know, on a humanitarian level, what should we be doing more as humans to stop this from happening again in any other country? And when we see worrying signs like dictators being issued arrest warrants for genocides, because I'd like to clear up that what happened in Khartoum is not the first time. It has happened in other regions for Sudan, it's happened in South Sudan, it has happened in Darfur, it has happened in the Nuba Mountains. So it is not unique, it's just that now it's got global attention for two reasons. It's the capital city and because of the diaspora who has been doing a lot to share awareness. So yeah, my question is, what can we be doing more on a humanitarian level, bearing in mind that organizations like the UN and the ICC have procedures that they need to follow before they can actually go on and take action. Thank you.
Thank you. There was one question in the back. Okay. Okay, then we'll come over to you, sir.
Thanks for the great presentation. My comments are actually about the target of the investigation that we have done with the youth and women representation. Most of these studies, it seems to me, some kind of retrospectively looking at what we have done with women and youth representation in the community. So, for example, when we're talking about women leadership, we're talking about previous years. But in few years' time, if you are considering having some kind of recommendation and submitting this to the government and then get this applied, by that time, your recommendation at some point might be a little bit, of a little less value, I would say. So I would encourage to consider the futuristic solution for women leadership. By 2025, maybe the nature of the job will be completely different from what we are currently looking for. The role of women and men in different communities will change. So that will be, I think, a good contribution to the study, I think.
Helpful. And I'm going to request each one of the speakers if they have any final comments, especially responding to the observations that have been made from the floor. Olivia, starting with you.
I just want to reiterate what I said, that it should take a collaborative effort, to make all the points that we've raised, different speakers have raised, to materialize. One of the things good about this conference is that we've, Professor Alan was saying yesterday that the issues raised, it's to be can be translated into policies, working collaboratively with, different government agencies, working, with all the other NGOs. And that's why, there are different, professionals in this area, not only, academics. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Professor Brown?
Okay, so in terms of what can we do, I think that, as Olivia just said, organisations like the UN do actually have their procedures, their hands are tied, so probably all we can do is let women find their voice and let's all listen to the men and the women and the men.
Thank you very much.
I think Azza's point about the suppression that the women of Sudan have experienced under the regime is something that I touched on in the presentation briefly, but it's perhaps a contributing factor as to why they've come out in such large numbers, because they've been experiencing the suppression and human rights violations for so long. And I mentioned the people who have been who've come from conflict areas such as South Sudan before it seceded, Darfur and the Nuba Mountains, coming to Khartoum and using the protests as an opportunity to speak of their experiences, even though it may be many years later after it's taken place, so perhaps delayed. But it's still good that their voices are being heard and the Sudanese community is coming together and showing solidarity and standing with them. In terms of what else we can do, continue. I think one of the contributing factors to the success of the uprisings is the consistency, both in Sudan and the diaspora. People have been relentless, coming out to protests on a weekly basis, maintaining the same energy with no signs of that dying down. So what they've done good is so far. The momentum needs to be maintained. And everything that they've done, and for example, also the people who have lost their lives in fighting for their country and fighting for the freedom and rights of others shouldn't be lost in vain. And the people in Sudan are there on the ground and they're experiencing it firsthand. And we as diaspora and also members of the international community are sort of vicariously living through what they are, through the photos and the information that they've been sharing. And because they are on the ground, it's important to listen to them. They've made their demands clear. They know what they want. And so I think it's important to listen to people who are there experiencing, so listen to what they want and action that rather than trying to guess or suggest your own ideas. People who are experiencing it firsthand have said what they want.
Lama, over to you.
Answering the question about the politics, 2017 was a remarkable year toward politics, toward women, 13 female joined the Shura Council, as well as allowed women to run the municipal councils election. But please note that my research is purely academy, but my interest in women history in general in Saudi Arabia, I know that, so I share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you. A few words from Kaldapa.
Yes. So, thank you. So from all our speakers,
one point we must go home with is that women and youth are the bedrock of the society. They are full of energy, and they are full of initiative, and they are relentless in their fighting spirit. So for any sustainable development, women and youth are pivotal. Without them, there cannot be any kind of sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In just that one spirit, I'd like to just sum up by saying the three major issues that we talked about. One is we're talking about women, we're talking about youth, but we need not forget a variety of other underrepresented groups. So the concept of intersectionality means that we recognize diversity and ensure that when we talk about inclusion, participation, governance, it's every single stakeholder, irrespective of age, irrespective of gender, etc. The second one is, I thought the final observation that was made is, in our fast-changing world, I mean, we, for example, referred to at University of East London to 4.0, that we have to prepare ourselves for the opportunities, the challenges that we face. So let's prepare ourselves to ahead of the curve. And finally, the theme of the topic, that we must, as Hannah Arendt said, we must have the right to have rights. We must assert ourselves. Human rights are important because they are the benchmarks that we can hold states responsible. And it's civil society, all of us, who can make them happen. Thank you so much for a fascinating session. Look forward to seeing you sometime soon again. And thank you, and let's give a wide applause to our speakers and to yourselves. Thank you.
طيب يا مع السلامة عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحن بس عندنا 3 quick messages من Sudanese youth at the end of this session. Well, this is about the uprising. فأنا I will let them introduce themselves or they can deliver their message.
My name is Hadil El-Walid Abdalati.
I think it's better if you can.
No, I prefer English.
Go in English, go.
My name is Hadil El-Walid Abdalati. I am 15 years old and I am a school student. I study at Arc Academy. As a Sudanese, as a young Sudanese person, it's been so inspiring to see all of these people, all of the young people in Sudan fighting for the human rights which we have been stripped of for decades. It's also equally as inspiring to see women and youth together at the forefront of this revolution. And it's been reflected in social media with everybody painting social media blue in remembrance of all the martyrs who've sacrificed their life for Sudan. What would be even better is if the youth could be on the forefront of the negotiations with the TMC alongside the FFC, because we have played such a crucial and pivotal role in this revolution. Another thing that would be nice to see is the international community coming together to support all the problems and crises being faced by people all across the world. And it's not just Sudan who has suffered and who is suffering. It's many other countries across the world, like Yemen, whose population is half the population is expected to die by the end of the year. We need to start coming together and stop only being concerned by the issues that affect us, but the issues that affect every single person in this world. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Aza. I study architecture in the University of Westminster, and my current project is about the women of Sudan and the revolution. So I just want to speak on behalf of the youth community around the world from the countries who are suffering. We have come together on the social platform to spread awareness of what is happening in our countries, including Sudan. However, I just feel that we have been repeating the question of why has the TMC not been extricated, or al-Bashir sent to the ICC, as they have said, as he is not in power anymore. The Janjaweed are also responsible for what has happened in Darfur. They have killed over millions of people, and nobody was aware of this until what happened in Khartoum now, and the youth have started to communicate about it on social media. So all I want to say is, when will our voices be heard? When will there be action taken? We want the power to be handed over to the FFC. and the RSF to be removed from Sudan. And we want our basic human rights back. So, as you know, the internet's been cut off from Sudan for 16 days now. We didn't have communication with our families back home, and this is, I believe, is one of the basic human rights that they deserve. So I hope we get answers as soon as. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Negla. I am a journalism with contemporary Arabic studies graduate, and I now work in digital marketing with a touch of freelance journalism here and there. As Azan Hadil have kindly summed up what's going on in the Sudanese revolution, what's happened in Sudan in general, in history, the crimes that have been committed by the TMC, by Bashir and his previous government, and by Mohammed Hamdan, the leader of the Janjaweed. I would like to just take this opportunity to spread a positive message. The crimes that have happened, particularly on the 3rd of June, are ones that are not only deteriorating physically, but deteriorating mentally. As we have mentioned, it is the youth, it is the women who have been at the forefront of this revolution. So my message, particularly to the youth and the women of the diaspora, is that we need to stay strong, we need to keep positive, we need to keep together as a unit like we have been doing to support those back home. We need to remember that once we do actually complete our mission and become a civilian government, which I genuinely believe we will, we need to make sure that we are strong then as well, and we help our community heal, because we only know a small percentage of what's happened in Sudan, and as soon as the internet comes out, we are bound to hear a lot more atrocities. So it is up to us to keep on fighting and to keep on being a strong unit, and to allow ourselves as well the mental healing and the mental space, so that we can be mentally healthy and prepared for what may happen in the future weeks, months and years of Sudan when we become to rebuild it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to clarify, this is we had a very successful and a very engaging youth engagement and women empowerment session, and there was so much, many people were so enthusiastic about contribution, and those are three of many others. We could not give them time to contribute during the session, so we tried to give them this platform to still deliver what message they want. But the whole session was about women empowerment and youth engagement and human rights. So thank you very much, and this will conclude this session, and we will continue tomorrow. Thank you very much.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.